Encyclopedia Brown and the Case of the Slippery Salamander. Written by Donald J. Sobel. Illustrated by Brett Hellquist. Genre: realistic fiction tells about events that could really happen. As you read, think about how the events in this story are similar to events in real life.
To a visitor, Idaville looked like an ordinary seaside town. It had churches, 2 car washes, and 3 movie theaters. It had bike paths, sparkling white beaches, a synagogue, and plenty of good fishing spots. But there was something out of the ordinary about Idaville. For more than a year, no child or grown-up had gotten away with breaking a law. People wanted to know, how did Idaville do it? The secret resided in a red brick house at 13 Rover Avenue. That was where Idaville's police chief lived with his wife and son. Chief Brown was a smart, kind, and brave man. But he wasn't the one who kept crooks from getting away with their crimes. No, the brains behind it all was his 10-year-old son, Encyclopedia. Encyclopedia's real name was Leroy, but only his parents and teachers called him that. Everyone else called him Encyclopedia, because his brain was filled with more facts than a reference book. Sometimes, the Brown family was tempted to tell the world about Encyclopedia's amazing talent as a crime solver. But so far, they hadn't leaked a word. For one thing, the Browns didn't like to boast. For another, who would believe that Idaville's top detective was a 5th grader? One Monday night, Chief Brown sat at the dinner table staring at his plate of spaghetti. So far, he hadn't slurped up a single strand. Encyclopedia and his mother knew the reason. The chief wasn't eating because he had come up against a crime that he couldn't solve. Encyclopedia waited for his dad to tell him about the case. Whenever Chief Brown was stumped, Encyclopedia cracked the case for him, usually by asking just one question. At last, Chief Brown looked up. "There was a theft at the aquarium today," he said, rubbing his forehead. Last summer, an aquarium had opened near the beach. The most popular attractions were the giant shark tanks, the dolphin shows, and the Den of Darkness. The Den of Darkness was a huge indoor exhibit of reptiles and amphibians. Encyclopedia especially liked visiting the frogs and salamanders in the amphibian section. "I hope the great white sharks weren't stolen," Mrs. Brown said with a smile. "That would certainly take a bite out of business." Chief Brown shook his head. It wasn't the sharks. Encyclopedia put down his fork and listened carefully as his father explained that Fred, a tiger salamander, had been stolen. "Fred was shipped to the aquarium only 2 days ago," Chief Brown said. "He was being kept apart from the other animals until the officials were sure he was healthy. If he got a clean bill of health, he was to go on display next month." "Do you have any clues, dear?" Mrs. Brown asked. The chief frowned. "Not many. All we know is that the salamander disappeared this morning, sometime between 10:30 and 11:45. "Why would someone steal a salamander?" Mrs. Brown wondered. "Fred is the aquarium's only tiger salamander," her husband explained. From what the director of the aquarium told me, someone could sell him for a lot of money." "Really?" Mrs. Brown's eyes widened. "Do you think a visitor might have stolen him?"